And so are a host of other leaders, as well as Democrats and Republican staff.
An earthquake that devastated Haitians, people who have faced adversity beyond what most Americans could ever comprehend. And the president of the luckiest nation in the world taking swipes and jabs. And we should also point out that the president said he didn't say it and they should record these meetings. Earlier this week, when there was that recorded meeting on immigration where the president said to Dianne Feinstein he would be open to a clean deal on Dreamers, the next day when the White House released that transcript, somehow, so odd, that portion of the conversation was left out. The White House has since corrected it. I want to bring my panel in. Bret Stephens, an MSNBC political contributor and op-ed columnist for the New York Times. Brendan Greeley, contributor to the Economist Free Exchange blog. And Midwin Charles, an attorney and contributor to Essence magazines. And Robert Costa, an MSNBC political analyst and national political reporter at the Washington Post. And you know we're all going to be watching him on TV tonight because it's Friday. Bret, to you first. Whether or not the president used these specific words, I'm already seeing, well, maybe it's conflated. The president may have used this term about some African countries, but not Haiti. Let's take a step back. Let's look at the president's history. Housing discrimination, Central Park 5 lie, birtherism, calling Mexicans rapists and drug dealers, banning Muslims, pardoning Joe Arpaio, calling neo-Nazis some fine people, supporting Roy Moore, who said the time in history he liked the most was the slave days, and here we are with referring to Haitians or Africans or the place they come from, send them back to those places because they're you-know-what.
Yeah, I mean, this is both the least surprising as well as the most outrageous, maybe, marker in his presidency. I think Donald Trump has become the typhoid Mary of American politics. I mean, he really needs to be isolated from having any kind of comment about politics because he's a danger to the country. He's an insult to the country. He's an embarrassment for the country. And by the way, the damage that he's doing to his own presidency, to his own party, to his own agenda is just as great, which we may say is a terrific, is a terrific relief.
His own party, they're not mutes. Paul Ryan.
Where is Paul Ryan?
Ryan
yeah,
and Mitch McConnell.
Exactly.
Come on over, brothers. You're welcome to sit down here every day. Yeah. They're some of the most senior leaders in this country. They can speak for themselves. Lindsey Graham was in the room. Radio silent.
Yeah. I mean, look, about these guys, you have to say, you sleep with dogs, you wake up with fleas, to quote Benjamin Franklin. They have richly earned what Trump is giving them in terms of the kind of the moral infestation.
But why do you blame Donald Trump for Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan's choices? They were Republicans long before he was. Those are men who speak for themselves.
Well, I mean, they have fully made their bed with this president, and it is morally gutting whatever remains of a sound Republican Party.
Bob Costa, the president talked about a merit-based system, and we know he said he doesn't want people from these countries, but Frank Lutz tweeted out today, remember, he's a Republican pollster, that 43% of people from African nations have bachelor's degrees or higher, which is more than the overall American population, and twice as many Nigerian Americans have a graduate degree as white Americans. You could go to a hospital in Chicago and there are more Ethiopian doctors than there are in Ethiopia. So besides racist, it's absolutely ill-informed and, dare I say, flat out stupid.
Stephanie, beyond the racial vulgarity at play here with these offensive comments, you're seeing a real political problem for the president. Just days ago, he was talking about maybe signing an immigration deal, whatever came to his desk on the Oval Office. Now, because of these comments, Democrats on Capitol Hill tell me this morning they feel they have leverage in the negotiations on all of the issues you mentioned, that their base now is clamoring for them to get more gains in these discussions. And you see the White House really against the wall right now, trying to deal with the big public and political blowback against those remarks.
Against the wall, and there'll be no one to build it if the president doesn't let immigrants in this country, because labor and labor markets are what help our economy thrive. Brendan Greeley, to you, you've actually been doing a lot of work on trade. Steel, for example. Does the president have an understanding of our position of power or lack thereof? Because when he talks about our position on the planet, He doesn't actually know any of the facts.
Well, I think that there's a real issue. I think the president is stuck permanently in the 1980s. Don't get me wrong, it was a good decade, but...
Are you talking style-wise?
No, I'm talking about in terms of his assumption of American power. We could negotiate with the Japanese in the 1980s in a different way than we can negotiate with the world now. We had a market that the world was desperate to get into. There are other developed consumer markets in the world. Ours is not as important as it used to be. So when he holds out the stick instead of the carrot, look, we'll deny you access to our markets, that's not as significant as it used to be, certainly not as significant as it was in the 1980s. When it comes to labor, you know, we're talking about the deep offense of this statement, and I think that everything that Brett said about that is right. But if we look at the underlying policy, what he's essentially saying is we can decide which groups of people contribute and which groups of people do not contribute. And I think particularly there's another issue right now, which is they're considering revoking the legal status of a large group of Salvadorans who are in America. They've been here for 20, sometimes 30 years. You know, and I don't want to take in vain a word that I know Brett takes very seriously. That's an unconservative argument. Right. There is a huge number of Salvadorans in Maryland, where I live. And I personally know Salvadorans who have come here under TPS. They've started businesses. They're paying taxes. I was just talking to a Salvadoran who started a chain of restaurants in Annapolis, Maryland, about economic development for Annapolis. I wanted his help. You know, we have, and so they're deeply enmeshed in society there. Salvadoran kids go to school with my kids. They're Salvadorans on my old man soccer team, right? And I have to tell you, I have never met a Salvadoran who does not work hard. But so we don't know. They didn't come with PhDs. They didn't come because somebody decided they'd be good. They came because they had to, and they have contributed a ton.
How many people watching the show had grandparents or great-grandparents who came to this country with a PhD in their hand?
Exactly.
My grandmother was a seamstress. My great-grandfather was a carpenter. The essence of this country is that people come with nothing but ambition and a willingness to work hard. And Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand that.
Midwin, your parents came from Haiti. I had the chance to go to Haiti a few years ago. And the resiliency that people from Haiti have, they don't need President Trump's approval. What they have to go through every day to survive, the natural and political disasters they face are stunning. Right. How will Haitians take this?
Well, I can tell you that the blowback has been incredibly crazy. You know, I think that most Haitians are not surprised. And yes, you are correct. Both my parents are from Haiti. I am first-generation American. And when my parents came here, they did so, like most immigrants, looking for a better life. And they've done an extraordinary job in raising two daughters who contribute to American society. And I think that's what's being lost here, is this idea that immigrants come to this country and they do not contribute to this country. Let me just give you a little snapshot about what Haiti is. In 1804, Haiti became the first free black republic in the world. Okay? They kicked out the French and decided that they were going to have liberty and they were going to govern themselves. And as a result, they became a beacon for other Latin American countries and the like for liberty and for democracy. And so starting with that and culminating to today, which happens to be the 8th year anniversary of an earthquake that decimated a country, over 300,000 people lost their lives. So this idea that a group of people come from a country that is a shithole, and I'm going to say the word because it is the word that the president of these United States has used, is outrageous, it's degrading. And I will tell you this about Haitian people: you are not going to meet a group of people who are more resilient, who are more educated, who have more dignity, who are more hardworking, who have more respect, who want to do nothing more than to contribute to this country and to this world. And again, let me also make a point here that Donald Trump makes a point about he doesn't want people coming from certain countries. I would beseech him to go out and read a book, get off the golf course, visit Haiti, visit Africa, and read that book and understand how history works. A lot of people come to this country because their countries have been destabilized by American foreign policy. Okay? In 1915, America occupied Haiti. All right? So I think it's incredibly important that the President of the United States understands